Hello, guys and gals, me Mudahar. Ladies and gentlemen, Australia is back again. Now, when I talk about the world's biggest cyber attack just happened, well, unfortunately, I gotta keep titling these videos because the ante just keeps getting upped. Ladies and gentlemen, Australia, the land down under, has actually had another massive data breach, this time compromising nearly 10 million people again. Now, the reason I cover these things is A, to bring, awareness to these situations. If you do live in Australia and you are involved with any of these organizations, maybe it's time for you to take, proactive measures. But of course, the other thing is shaming. I believe shaming big companies and governments is what's important. I'm sick and tired of all these assholes BP oil spilling us saying, "We're sorry. I know we pay our executives millions a year, but we surely couldn't spend more than $10 on security, guys. Come on now." I'm sick and tired of that and shouldn't be tolerated. Now, of course, ladies and gentlemen, before the blood pressure goes higher and the rectum starts prolapsing, let's get into what happened. Now, if you're in Australia, you know of something known as Medibank, okay? So Medibank, ladies and gentlemen, for anybody who has no idea, is basically one of their top health insurers, okay? Just to go onto their website real quick, I'm going to show you right now. I'm actually going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. This is private health insurance, okay? Now, when it comes to health insurance companies, specifically companies like this, they tend to have a lot of information on you. Information that's incredibly private. Anything related to your medical history should be hella private, okay? And when they're dealing with data like this, it's usually the expectation that they've kept this shit under lock and key. Well, they didn't treat it like that, regardless having the name bank in their actual company, okay? So let's get down to the timeline of events, all right? Now, earlier in the month, earlier in October, Medibank actually had some rather sussy situations regarding network intrusion. So on October 13th, thankfully, news articles keep a timeline record of all this. Medibank says it detected unusual activity on its network and removes access to some customer-facing systems. The company says there was no evidence that any sensitive data was accessed. Okay, that's kind of a weird wording right there. What, did you check the whole thing, the whole network, and you basically came to the conclusion that no evidence anything has happened? That's kind of like denying, but not really denying that no data was ever stolen. All right, cool. October 17th, normal business operations resume. Medibank reaffirms that there was no evidence that consumer data had been removed from its network. All right, cool. Somebody played around with the network, but nothing got stolen. Thank you. God bless. October 19th, Medibank says an unnamed hacker group contacted to negotiate about customer data it claimed to have retrieved from the company's IT systems. And then they confirmed a day later, on the 20th of October, Medibank confirms that a criminal stole personal information of 100 customers, including medical diagnosis and procedures, as part of a theft of 200 gigabytes of data. That's not a small amount of data that gets siphoned out of servers, by the way. So again, I just want you to reiterate, about a week ago, roughly, they were saying, we got no evidence, nothing was stolen. But that, ladies and gentlemen, just was not true. It seems like they did lose it. So of course, you might be wondering, Muda, what actually happened? What compelled this company, out of their goodwill, to tell their users that they were actually under some serious trouble? Their information got leaked out. Very personal information, by the way. Now, of course, then Medibank decided to say, hey, since yesterday's announcement, our investigation has now established that the criminal had access to all of the customer personal data and significant amount of health claims data. So basically, whatever hospitals you were going to, what claims you were making. All international students' customer personal data and significant amounts of health claim data. All Medibank customers' personal data and significant amount of their health claims data. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, if we go back to their actual website, it really doesn't seem like all the news articles are treating this seriously. They themselves have said the data includes personal data such as names, addresses, date of birth, phone numbers, email addresses, Medicare numbers for AHM customers, and in some cases, the passport numbers for the international students. Yes, things that should never have gotten leaked. So what had happened, okay? How did this even come into light like this? Well, ladies and gentlemen, they were given a ransom, okay? They were basically told, pay up money or else we'll leak this information. The hackers, in this case, was a hacking group known as Revil. If you don't know Revil, basically we looked at them in the past when it came to things regarding the Colonial Pipeline, SolarWinds, so to speak. These people have been making hand over fist money, basically running ransomware and ransoming a crap ton of data from various large companies out there. Okay, this is kind of their MO. Now, one of the ways, thank God, that we're able to find access to this is through like actual ransom watch, agencies around, various watchdog groups that basically list all these organizations and effectively point out which websites they've actually hacked throughout the world. All right. Now, of course, I'm not going to show you the links to any of this. I'm not going to link to any of this stuff too, just because I want to protect this data as much as possible. I'm just telling you that when it comes to actual leaked materials, there's a bunch of groups out there and there's watchdog agencies that check for all of this, which is how we traced it back to Revil. Now, when it came to this ransom, they were given a 24-hour notice. All right. If you don't pay up within 24 hours, we're just going to start releasing this information to the public, all right? That's how these ransoms work. Now, of course, Metabank, when they talked to their experts and cybercrime experts, they had basically gotten under the advice that they shouldn't actually pay this ransom. Today, we've announced that no ransom payment will be made to the criminal responsible for this data theft. Based on the extensive advice we received from cybercrime experts, we believe there's only a limited chance paying a ransom would ensure the return of our customers' data and prevent it from being published. There's a strong chance that paying puts more people in harm's way by making Australia a bigger target. Now, this is actually true, all right? Obviously, if you pay a ransom, all these hackers are going to think, damn, these Australian companies roll over pretty easily. Let's go. Of course, the reality is not paying still doesn't come without any consequences. Because when this data is leaked out there, then the people who have now their information out in the wild, they're the ones that are targeted by special scams. Now, I can tell you an example of this just in Canada alone. For instance, whenever you have your name, phone number, email, and address in a registry together, which isn't all the way uncommon, let's say that a shopping site or a shopping service gets hacked that you may have used at one point. Well, it happened to me as well. So basically what had happened was they got a very old address of mine that I lived at like 10 years ago. And so nowadays in my email, I get like home assessments, electric assessments for Mudahar Anas at address, so-and-so. Obviously, I know these are scams, all right? I can tell you that these are scams. But for most people, they may actually end up falling for it if they don't know what they're looking for. I think the apt comparison to this is something like counterfeit bills. If you don't know what you're looking for, how do people know if a bill is counterfeit? Do you know how to feel for it? Do you know how to listen for it? Obviously with, the sound that's generated from scraping a bill. Do you know how to check for magnetic strips? I don't know how to do that. So for me, I'd probably fall for a fake bill from time to time. But of course, that's generally the same vibe that I can put towards things like cybersecurity or keeping yourself safe. If you don't know what to look for, or if you're not vigilant enough, you'll probably fall for what I would consider to be pretty easy methods of phishing and internet shenanigans. Now, of course, now we're going to look into the actual company behind it. So Revil, who actually was doing this, they had posted on their blogs. Now, a lot of these services do have blogs, and this blog exists on the old dark web, okay? So I had to go on a tour for this. Ladies and gentlemen, metabank.com.au, with around 7,000 something views. They're, quote, a man who has committed a mistake but doesn't correct it is committing another mistake, says Confucius. Data will be published in 24 hours. P.S. I recommend selling all Metabank stocks. Looking back, that data is stored in not very understandable formats, table dumps. We'll take some time to sort it out, and we post a small part of the data in human-readable format, so a JSON file. We'll continue posting data partially. Including confluence, source codes, list of stuff, and some files obtained from many systems from different hosts. Negotiation process inside the leak. Now, it's even wilder was they used some meme format from like 1992. Obviously, they used the Mario trailer, extortion gang, do you pay? Metabank, I do not. Look, nobody said hackers weren't total goddamn cringe. But of course, we're going to look inside their negotiation process. Now, inside here, they got a bunch of actual files, okay? Some of them actually consist of the actual database in of itself. So within the database, one thing that I can kind of confirm is, unfortunately, it seems pretty legit. So I did actually download it just to see how legitimate this actual breach was. And the reason I do this is because sometimes hackers will generate fake breaches. And fake breaches are relatively easy to tell if they're filled mostly with garbage information that has no reason to exist. But I decided to look into it, and it was not exactly pleasant. Now, according to this information, they had basically received the birth date of individuals, their Medicare specific number, of course, their exact name, sex, their literal address even too. And of course, this is all I can show you. I'm not actually going to show you their actual information, but unfortunately, the level of information provided was really, really granular in this case, sadly. So of course, this information looked to be pretty legitimate. In fact, it is pretty legitimate because the actual company admitted that this is what actually got leaked out. Now we're going to do something interesting. We're going to look at how the negotiation process for this works. So enclosed in this leak were a few images of the actual exchange between Medibank and these hackers. So here you can see that they were speaking to somebody known as Alice. Hello, we received your message. We want to talk with you, but need to be sure you're the person who say they have our data. Can you tell us all the addresses and phone numbers you sent messages to? Again, I have to say that some of the English over here is a little bit questionable, but of course, I guess this might have been the actual person, the representative from Medibank. Now, of course, moving on forward, this person was known as John Kramer from the actual Medibank, and John Kramer, all right, obviously, I don't know if they're going for a Saw movie reference here. Sure, we received Q-Talk's request. In WhatsApp, we got chat with further dialogue. We'll be only in Q-Talks. So, of course, they're trying to communicate with each other. And then, of course, Alice says, we want to talk, but you send different messages to different people. We think some of these messages don't come from you. Please tell us phone numbers and emails you used, so we know which ones are really you. Talks is harder for us, so we request only on our Proton email. You also cannot send data to other people when we try talking with you. We need you to confirm these things, please. We try to make this work. Again, I wonder if this is like the same person speaking to each other to make it look like they were negotiating. I don't know. But of course, then you move on further from John Kramer. In WhatsApp, we use disposable numbers. In total, we wrote to you from 3 different numbers. And then, of course, you go down further. Thank you for verification. We also need to confirm what data you have. Please send us a full file listing. So, of course, okay, we need some time to do it. We accessed Redshift on Jump servers, downloaded the data in CSV files in our application. Then we uploaded the data to our servers. Guided by the source code and documentation from Confluence, we linked the data and made selections. Based on our Confluence, we accessed all 7 layers including Redshift and Glue using a workbench. We spent about a month to figure out in your system and dump a tables with all their data. Alright, interesting. Received. We need some time to review. So Alice is obviously going to sit down and sift through the data to see how legitimate it is and if they've actually been breached before it comes time to paying for any ransom. Now, at this point, what had happened was Medibank was saying they were not going to pay for anything. And then, of course, John gets a little fucking pissed. Judging by your public statements, you are not in the mood for negotiations. And we have nothing to do but start posting data and also inform users that their data have been compromised. And this is purely the fault of your company. In addition to informing, we will also drop the link in a public source where the data is published so that it would be easier for them to form a lawsuit. We will regularly post data every day and support the news feed. We also get a secondary benefit from posting data in the form of hype about our affiliate program. But we are also ready to give you a day to think about how you should be better, and we advise you to proceed to the discussion of the price of demand in the event of a negative outcome of the negotiations for us. We will do everything in our power to inflict as much damage as possible to you, both financial and reputational. So they're getting a little angry. They're giving them one last day. And of course, Alice is saying, hey, listen, we're making public statements to keep our customers and others informed. We are on the stock exchange, and there are laws in Australia that require us to tell people what happened. We are trying to confirm what information you have. We can see your SQL queries, but the size of the output was very small, about 5 gigs compressed. You said there was 200 gigs. We need to know the files you took from our file shares. Please send that file listing too. John is even nice enough to say after you've paid the ransom, we can send you a full report about how we entered your network and we can help you out. So they're literally trying to offer cybersecurity advice after they've blackmailed and ran ransoms on you. Christ. Based on our previous experience in negotiations with our victims, look like our negotiations are going to hit a dead end. Part of our team wanted to stop negotiation process and start publishing data. But both of us negotiate for money. We want a ransom, you want to lose less. If you hope stretch process of negotiation, it will end us publishing sensitive data, which we will communicate with most sensitive customers of your company and pass them with their diagnosis directly because we have their emails and phone numbers, and explain all situation what happened. So of course they're committing to talk to all these individuals in their company and just straight up exposing them to it. And this is where they give the whole deadline, 7th November 2022, which, ladies and gentlemen, has already passed. And then, of course, finally, Alice says, listen, after considering every option, we have made the decision we are not going to pay your demand. It is also Australian government policy that ransoms should not be paid. We get that the impact this has. And of course, we're sitting here finally with all of the data breached for all the actual individuals involved in this company. Now, of course, the CEO has actually said, I'm sorry. We know that many will be disappointed with Metabank, and I acknowledge that disappointment, says the CEO. We will learn from this incident, and we will share our learning with others. Bullshit! I swear to God, every time any company gets caught doing this, the CEO and everyone involved is always like, they always have that Walter White surprise face, like, we didn't know this could happen. Ladies and gentlemen, I think it's time we start putting up fucking jail times. We start doing class action lawsuits, and we actually start putting up serious laws and regulations so the people that host some of our data actually have to put some goddamn effort in. You know, more budget than a box of Lucky Charms or like a $10 bill to actually safeguard really sensitive information. It's not hard to do. You literally just have to spend some money and have a proper team to manage this. Of course, if you don't, all right, then situations like this happen. We're in a world where the next big attack is always right around the corner. It seems like every week there's always something massive going on, and it's only getting worse the more we have switched to a digital, remote-heavy like work structure. Now, the CEO for the company on the 17th literally told the shareholders that apparently the real problem was like a stolen credential. Literally one stolen password is apparently all it took, all right, to actually steal data up to that contain like 10 million users' customer files and about 500,000 claims. Literally, he said a stolen password had been responsible, not inadequate systems, which is insane. So, of course, we have to really look at this. And, of course, there was further reporting and investigations where it came out to be that they were actually using, like, multi-factor authentication, which is pretty standard. But, of course, the reality of it is that it wasn't just one password, it seems. Now, of course, multi-factor authentication, for a lot of people who don't know, is like when you enter a password, obviously there's a couple extra steps. You may have this enabled for your things. If you don't, you probably should. Every time you enter a password, typically what will happen is you'll get a text message to your phone. You may have to put that in as well alongside your password because it's the multi-stage verification. You may have an authenticator app. You may have security keys. It doesn't matter. You have to have multiple, factors in order to authenticate yourself to get into systems. Now, of course, beyond all of it, it seems like in some reporting over here that it came out to be that in part of the Metabank systems, what had actually happened was part of the Azure cloud, which is Microsoft's cloud network, which is what Metabank hosts some of the applications on. What they were doing was using a machine-to-machine credentials known as Azure Service Principals. And it was that credential that might have actually been compromised in this situation. I will say, if it comes out to what the CEO is saying, that they literally got in with one credential, one password, and siphoned almost 200 gigabytes of data, this might be even dumber than what happened with Optus, where they literally had an unprotected API running. You know, if it's this easy to backdoor and get into these systems, then if it's this comically fucking easy, then maybe the CEOs for these companies should probably be looking at big fines or straight up jail time. Like, I'm not even opposed to people going to jail for not taking care of this data properly. Why is it that these companies feel like they can throw like literal crumbs onto the consumer and just say, hey, we've been hacked. If you feel like you need counseling, come to us. Hey, if you feel like you need credit monitoring, come to us. No, you should be responsible with paying out a pretty good lump sum to the people that you've actually hurt in the process. And beyond all of that, I say jail time because at the end of the day, that's the only way a lot of these executives will stop paying themselves insane salaries and bonuses and actually invest in proper security infrastructure, especially when it comes to sensitive data like people's medical records. Ladies and gentlemen, this is one of the largest hacks that I've ever seen, and I wanted to just sort of give a timeline of it. I've been following it for a few days. I've literally been following it as the ransom has passed. This has been one of those things that I've been sort of sitting at the edge of my seat watching. And unfortunately, it ended in probably the worst ways for everyone affected. It seems like the company kind of got away with it. It seems like the CEO just kind of said sorry and moved on with their life. And unfortunately, the people that had their information leaked out, they're the ones that are hit the hardest. If you're part of this, if you're involved, if you're unfortunately hurt from all this, I would say watch out for the next few weeks and make sure you change all your passwords, all your information as much as you reasonably can. And if you start getting shady emails, watch out for actual scams, because your information is out there in the goddamn Wild West at this point, and you should be very vigilant. But ladies and gentlemen, this is the story of a 24-hour ransom that never got paid, and it led to probably years of crippling problems for the people involved. Ladies and gentlemen, this is me, Mudahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.